Save the Semantics, episode 241. It is December 30th, 2023. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Saturday. This might be a little shorter half maybe. I might record tomorrow as well. Right now, it's a bit rainy. And so I'm kind of waiting for the rain to calm down a little bit. I'm going to go watch Godzilla Minus Zero, right? Is that the name? Just making sure. Godzilla Minus One. Excuse me. Godzilla Minus One. So I'm gonna be watching that because I've gotten a lot of recommendations for it. Got some suggestions for it. Some high praise for this movie, so I'm excited to watch it. I have no history. I've never seen any Godzilla movies. I've not seen the originals. I've not seen any of like the newer ones. I haven't seen shit. So this will be interesting. This will be an interesting experience. So while I have a little bit of time, I wanted to just record something, do a little catch up. And then maybe tomorrow I'll talk about the movie. I'll see if I'm able to squeeze some time, and then maybe I'll get into some more New Year's resolutions stuff, maybe a little fun thing, I'm not super serious about New Year's sort of things as I maybe once was, but I think it can be fun to think about things you can kind of improve in going into the next year. So yeah, that's something that I would want to maybe get into tomorrow when I have a little bit more time on my hands. But let's catch up on some stuff. Immediate news. Let's get into some immediate NBA news. So basically like an hour ago, the OG Anunoby trade happened with the Knicks. The Knicks got OG. They got... Who else did they get? They got Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. And then Toronto got RJ Barrett quickly and something else. I think maybe like a first round or second round pick. So, interesting trade. It's a very interesting trade. I feel like the Knicks gave up quite... I think the quickly portion of it is a pretty big deal because now they have a bit of like they gave up a little bit of depth for sure to get more of a defensive presence than an offensive presence, you could argue. I mean, OG is sort of kind of the archetypical 3-and-D kind of guy, at least right now. But I don't know. We'll see how well that it pans out for the Knicks. Like, this feels more of like a lateral move, a bit more of a lateral move, as opposed to like elevating them. Like, potentially it does give them a bit more of like a, off like a defensive threat at like the point of attack, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know, man. It'll be, time will tell how things kind of go. I feel like Toronto has quite a lot of pieces now. They can kind of go into like, full development mode with Scotty and Quickly. Their ages sort of line up for that. And then like Pascal's is, Siakam's really the last piece that really kind of needs to be let go from, their old squad, essentially, the 2019 run, championship team. And I think, and then I think they can like kind of really focus on developing their younger players and like really developing around Scotty, which I think is, which I feel is probably the primary goal considering just his youth and his potential and everything like that. So I think that probably makes the most sense moving forward. So we'll see how that goes. It's an interesting trade. I feel the Raptors have a bit of an edge here. They sort of what they got in return very much fits more on in their timeline, and I think they've gotten some nice pieces, especially with like quickly. I feel RJ Barrett, I'm not super high on. I'm just kind of like he has his ups and downs. Sometimes you're like, oh shit, he is, he's showing off that he can be like a viable threat or whatever, but he's too inconsistent based on just kind of what I've seen from him. Um, on the New York side of things, again, getting OG, I think Anunoby is pretty. I think he is a very good player, but it is also possible that it is kind of a bit of an overpay, you could say, like giving up quite a lot of assets in order to get him. Like they did also get a couple more pieces with Ochua and Flynn. I don't know much about Malachi Flynn. Achua, I've heard, is like a pretty solid like role player, so maybe they can use him for like depth. Because I know like Mitchell Robinson is out for like the rest of the season, right? So I think that might work out in their benefit. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I feel like giving up quickly kind of hurts a little bit because it's like who I guess like DiVincenzo could slot in as like their sort of point, player, him or I don't know, Hart maybe. I mean, they did have, you could argue at the guard position, they had a bit of like you know, a cluster going on there. Because what? They have they have Brunson, Grimes, DiVincenzo. Hart is like, you could say Hart is like a 2 or a 3. So I think that in terms of rotation pieces and whatnot, it gives them a bit more not flexibility, but it gives them a bit more of like a concrete idea of how their rotation should go. So I think that DiVincenzo can do a decent job of playing the point. He did a good job when he was with us, with the Warriors. So he could kind of slot in to fill that role for quickly. I think the one thing that quickly provided was his scoring, right? Like he could just go off one night for like 30, 40, once in a while. And I don't know if like any of the other players that they currently have like on their bench can do that. I know that he is like a 20-point scorer, so maybe that does, you can kind of make up for that with him, but he's not known as like a primary scorer, right? So I think a lot of the I still feel a lot of the offensive kind of responsibility is going to fall on Brunson. And he's done a really good job this year for sure. He's going to be an all-star. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, man. It's an interesting trade for sure. Maybe like, I think upon first reaction, it's easy to feel that the Raptors have gone kind of the, um, have gotten more of like the benefit from the trade, but I think we'll see how things pan out. This might be this might be beneficial for both teams moving forward. So, interesting in seeing how that goes. Let's talk kind of on the Warriors side of things. I think for us, with kind of the availability of players right now, Siakam is sort of like the remaining piece, right, that we could potentially trade for. I'm interested. I don't know how I feel about getting Siakam. Like he's an incredible player for sure. Like, but how much does his addition to the team address our issues? You know what I mean? Because we would be giving up a lot of depth. That's sort of expected, right? We would most likely have to give up like Kuminga and Moody and probably some other, I don't know, potentially like Wiggins or some shit. Like, like we would be giving it quite up. We would be giving quite a lot of depth up, and it would be nice to be able to keep some of like our young pieces. It would be great if we could keep someone like Jackson Davis or Pajemski, but we'll see. Like I think that our depth is, excuse me, we would be very top heavy, which is whatever. It's fine. We were top heavy when we were during like the Durant years, but I mean it was just like the starting five, or the five of Curry, Durant, Thompson, Draymond, and Iguodala. Like that. I mean, that was just like an incredible lineup. So we wouldn't be able to replicate that exactly. It would be sort of like a poor man's version of that if we were able to keep, kind of our core with Draymond and everything like that. I feel like Siakam would be maybe our small ball 5 or 4, right? But yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of hesitant. I don't know how well that would kind of go, because like we would still be a small team. Like we would get an all-star player in Siakam, but I just don't know how well that's going to mesh and how well that's going to raise our ceiling, I guess. So that's kind of the option that's available. I don't know who else in the trade market is available. It would be cool if there was a center out there, but I just don't think that's out there. So Siakam's kind of the big ticket item at the moment, big ticket guy. So quick catch up. That was a quick catch up on NBA news. It'll be interesting to see how other teams react, if there's any other trades that are going to happen in the coming weeks. And we'll see how that goes. Some other things. I beat 13 Sentinels a few days ago. I want to get into that more actually tomorrow, because I feel like I have quite a lot of thoughts that I want to I guess try to be a bit more clear about, because now that I've kind of completed the game, I've been sort of playing the game a little bit. There's some extra content, which is a nice surprise. But yeah, I wanna be a bit more cohesive with my thoughts before I kind of get into it. I guess some other things. I started watching. I got an HBO Max, a light, a HBO Max Lite sort of subscription. I got there's a nice Black Friday deal going on, so I got that, and I finally started watching Barry again, because I hadn't watched it for a few years. I watched it a long time back when I had a free subscription to HBO for a few months or something, and I binge watched the first 2 seasons. There are 2 more seasons, which I didn't know about. I thought there was only 1 more, so that's exciting. I miss the show. I've missed the show, man. It's the type of humor, just kind of the dark humor, and just the writing and everything. I think it's very much up my alley. And Bill Hader is excellent. And also just the length of each episode. It's only 30 minutes each. It's perfect. It's right up my alley. I don't have to commit myself to fucking long, hour-long episodes and multiple seasons and shit. It has to be a really good show in order for me to justify that. But this is right. This is exactly what I kind of wanted and needed for a show. And so yeah, I'm happy to kind of delve back into it. It's very snappy. It gets your attention. Every scene is very it's very quick paced. It feels very quick paced to me. And the humor's great. So I'm very happy that I'm getting back into it, and I'll most likely finish it by next week, because there's each episode is only half an hour, and there's only maybe 8 episodes a season or something like that. So yeah, I should be getting through it pretty quickly, and then I can move on to something else too. So that's cool. But I'm enjoying it. I'm very much enjoying it. Yeah. So I just want to do a quick one. I'll talk about some more things tomorrow. I'll talk about I'll talk about 13 Sentinels. Do some resolution stuff. Ooh, you know what would be fun? I think what would be fun is talk about games. It's perfect timing too, because I just finished a game. It would be to talk about games that I'm looking forward to playing next year. I think that's a fun topic. And and kind of like break it down, theorize, or hypotheticals, whatever. So that'll be a topic for discussion for tomorrow, and I'm going to save that. It's going to be the 31st. Perfect timing for New Year's resolution stuff. So yeah, I'll talk about more things tomorrow. Alrighty, it is January 1st, 2024. Recorded this in the new year. Yesterday I wasn't able to find the time to record, so making it up for it today. We're in the new year. It's 2024. As always, it hasn't really dawned on me that a new year has come forth. It doesn't really feel that way. It really hasn't. I think that it just feels like another, day. I don't know. It's nothing too crazy, but it's been a nice, this sort of past week or so has been nice. Been able to catch up with friends. I've been able to relax and do some things. Yesterday I hung out with friends pretty much the whole day, so that was really nice. And today it's just gonna be pretty calm, pretty chill. I also have tomorrow off as well, which is gonna be really nice, so I'm gonna take advantage of that. And there are some errands that I do need to run, so maybe I can kind of take care of that tomorrow as well. So yeah, I want to I want to enjoy these last couple of days of my break as much as I can, and kind of move on from there, and then take on whatever is coming up next in this next month or so. So that is sort of my approach going forward. But yeah, I wanted to catch up on some things, and then there was also some things that I wanted to get into, including maybe some like resolution shit, or maybe I want to talk about some of the games I mentioned last time, the games that I would like to play this upcoming year. I think that would be like a fun sort of topic of conversation. So what was I talking about? So before I sort of cut off myself early, a couple days back, after that, I went to see Godzilla Minus One, and I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty well done. Basically, it was like based on kind of the critical reception, but mostly like I got some recommendations from friends to check it out, and I'm glad that I did. I thought it was pretty well done and enjoyable. I don't think it's like a crazy, like it's not doing anything new by any means at all, but I think that it, the essentially like the main focal points, the concepts that the main thematic elements that the movie focuses on are pretty well executed. You know what I mean? Like it's really straightforward. It's like nothing crazy. It's like it is very much by the numbers, like a blockbuster movie, and kind of how it handles things and the plot and everything. Like it is all very. You can predict exactly what's going to happen, right? It is a very predictable movie, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think it worked. I felt I think the main sort of praise that I can kind of give this movie, in my opinion, is that I felt the intention of what the creators wanted it to be. You know what I mean? Like I understood the intent behind like the messages. Some of it is kind of like beat over your head a little bit. But that's okay. I think, considering this is for a much more, generally speaking, like a wider audience, if you want to call it that, I felt that, I think it was sort of like, it made sense that was sort of the approach that they went with, I think it made a lot more sense to, create something to where it's much more much more appeal to just a broader audience in general. I think that just kind of makes sense. From my understanding, the last movie, which was Shin Godzilla or whatever, I think that one, from my understanding, I haven't seen it yet. It went with a much more kind of like a satirical approach to the story of like Godzilla, where it was kind of like dealing with like sort of the bureaucratic issues in sort of like a humorous and satirical manner, as opposed to this one where it was like essentially everything was sort of played serious. You know what I mean? Like it is the ridiculous notion of a giant lizard monster going out and destroying Tokyo, but you bought it. You bought it because of the acting to some degree, and then also the direction, and then just sort of the, I don't know, they played everything straight. Like there was not any moments that was necessarily like, it didn't look to like the camera. I mean, like, do you guys see that? Like it didn't like try to like do any meta commentary or anything like that. It was like a straight by the numbers kind of movie about a monster that destroys destroys Japan, you know what I mean? So it's I think that it does that pretty well, and it sort of showcases that pretty well for the most part. I think one of my sort of main criticisms of the movie are, I think some of the acting is pretty hammy and pretty played up in some moments, especially like the main character. I think he like really just like it feels very much like an anime character, and I kind of recognized his voice as well. I think he's done voice work in like some Ghibli movies and maybe some anime as well. He kind of sounded very familiar. But his acting, like it was very much like it was like very like super like dramatic and hammed up at times, and there were moments where it worked, and there were some moments where I was like, all right, this feels like it's maybe taking away from the weight of the story, where it might have been a little better if you played it a little bit more, I guess a bit more, just he reeled it in a little bit more. I think, based on kind of my understanding though, and here's the thing, I'm not super familiar with like Japanese cinema. I'm really not. I have not been exposed to a ton of it. I've only seen, some of like the classical Japanese movies, like, obviously like Seven Samurai. But other than that, I'm not. I don't have a very. I don't have a lot of background, I guess, or I just haven't seen a lot of Japanese movies in general, so I can't really say how the acting necessarily goes. But based on what I've kind of read in regards to kind of how acting goes, it sort of is in line. The main actor's sort of acting style is sort of in line with other Japanese cinema, so I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But I think coming from my lens, where I'm sort of used to, I don't know, I guess like it's just not necessarily my my cup of tea, that in seeing that kind of that type of portrayal with a character, because it feels a bit cartoony a little bit. But I think, other than some of the moments where I didn't feel like I was necessarily buying his character, I thought it was well done, and I thought the acting in general was solid. I think it was fine. I think the main, and I've been saying kind of the central thematic elements, the one that really is about kind of the human, just the human, I guess, experience of persevering and surviving through just these catastrophic events, right? The name, kind of is sort of implying, or rather kind of saying, that Godzilla Minus One is the status of Japan after World War II, and then you got this other event happening with Godzilla coming in and destroying parts of Japan. So that's sort of where the name comes from, and it is, just kind of the, and I guess this is not idea of, persevering and just like, coming together as a group of people to, face up against this unimaginable force is nothing new at all. Like this shit has been, shown in pretty like any like just in superhero movies and fucking anime and just a bunch of other stuff. It's been shown multiple times, and it's been portrayed in multiple stories. But I think that this movie does a very good job of doing that, and you sort of feel the anguish that especially the main character goes through. He goes through a lot of shit, man. And you very much feel for him and his experiences and what he goes through. And I think that just sort of that kind of focus on, despite all of the hell that the people have been kind of put through, there is, if there is sort of a united front, then they can sort of overcome anything, right? And that's, I don't know, I thought that was a very well executed message, and, essentially the value of your life and how you treat yourself along with others. I think that message was very clear in the movie. They kind of explicitly said that, and there's like this one monologue where one of the characters is talking about, the way in which they essentially valued their own lives in kind of during the war. And I thought that was, it's kind of poignant. Even if it is like explicitly stated for the audience to see, I still think that is a very poignant message. And I think that type of central theme in media, I think is very, it hits for me. I think it works for me. Like that's why I feel I have this sense of, I don't know, there's when that kind of is like the central theme of like your story, I feel, and it does a good job of conveying that through the characters and through, the storyline and the narrative. I feel, I don't know, I feel a lot more connected to it, and it works for me. And I particularly like that concept of essentially, giving your life, your life being valuable, and that there is essentially a reason for you, to go on and to kind of move forward, and to not just throw it away so easily for a cause or for, something that is greater than you, but rather placing trust in others and kind of building upon that. I think there's something there for sure to really draw upon and feel, kind of inspired. And I know this is like, overall, this is still kind of like a cheesy and kind of corny, like Godzilla, monster kaiju movie, but I just think that I understand why this resonates so much with people, and I understand why this has gotten such a, critical reception. Again, and there are things that I can poke holes at with this movie, whether it's like maybe there are some parts of the CGI that don't look as good as some other parts, and again, maybe some of the acting didn't hit for me, but I think that the through line of it, the like once it gets to the end of the movie, you understand and you feel, or at least I felt, the intent behind the movie and the central themes of it. You know what I mean? And it resonated with me. So that's kind of like, that's really the takeaway that I have. And I did feel sort of the emotional, the moment, like the emotional kind of moments of the movies and what it was trying to go for. And like, it is dramatic. I totally get it. It is dramatic, and it is like, you know, it is ridiculous at times, but I think it just does it pretty well. And, like, it's very clear what the what the messaging is. So I think that, I just wanted to sort of give my, I guess, praise, for the film. And, I recommend it. I do recommend it. I think it is a solid movie. And, I think that there is, despite its sort of maybe surface level commentary on some of like the political aspects of the movie in regards to like the bureaucratic elements of the Japanese government, or perhaps maybe some anti-war messaging, I think that I still think that there is still conversations that can be had that are maybe deeper than what the movie provides. And I think that's pretty interesting, and I think that's pretty cool. So, yeah, I enjoyed this one. So check it out if you get the chance to. It's kind of funny because this sort of conversation, this movie sort of ties in a little bit, not ties in, but there are some similarities between this movie and then 13 Sentinels, which I recently completed. Both involve kaijus. Both involve sort of these like, larger than life sort of monstrosities. And it also is, it also deals with, the concept of human like perseverance and survival and like everything like that. I don't want to get into like the spoilers of 13 Sentinels, because I think this game, for anyone who is interested, is best left for themselves to experience on their own. I feel that talking about the story really doesn't give it justice necessarily. Just like kind of like, explaining like the plot synopsis or whatever doesn't really provide the full length or provide the full scope of the game and that experience that you get from playing through it. So I would recommend for anyone who is interested to play the game first before, I don't know, but just don't look up a plot synopsis, like play the game yourself if you are curious about how it goes. This game is very heavy, I guess, on it is very much driven by the plot, and it is heavy on, mysteries sort of building upon each other, and then, once you get to the end of the game, you finally get, you understand what the reasoning as to why these characters were in this predicament, and you sort of understand what the purpose of it was. I think that, the full reveal at the end, I was like, okay, it wasn't like a shocking kind of moment, because at that point it sort of, everything was kind of revealed to be a certain thing, a certain concept. So once they got to the end, it wasn't like a crazy shocking reveal necessarily. It was just more like, oh, I see, I understand what the purpose was for this. I understand what these characters are and what they are doing in this situation, and you sort of are able to be like, okay, that's I felt that it was I felt that it was satisfying, and I think it's a very cool sci-fi setting, and how everything was like set up and all that. But again, I think the core or the central concept of this game, the main themes, are very similar to what I just talked about with Godzilla Minus One in regards to human, just the ability for humans to kind of survive and then potentially thrive later down the road. It's very, I felt that was pretty very clear, especially at the end of the game. I think that this game also does a very good job at showing and establishing the relationships, and essentially showing that the relationships that are developed between the characters to be incredibly important and to be essentially the driving force behind why characters decide to take on certain actions, right? This is something that I discussed last time in regards to, understanding like human nature, why they might make irrational decisions despite it, not making complete sense in in typical like situations. It's like, why would you do that? It's like, oh, you're doing it because you have feelings for this person, you love this person, and so you're going to do something irrational because of it, you know what I mean? And so a lot of the actions are driven by those sort of like, just by emotional instincts, essentially, or just emotional kind of motivations, right? And I think that there is, along with that, I think there is sort of maybe this, you could argue maybe this sort of like inherent want to like continue to sort of survive and do the best that you can despite how bleak the future might look, and really try to rebuild from that. There is this kind of sense of because like essentially once everything kind of gets revealed, it's shown. I guess I don't really want to say too much, but it is a very sort of, what is it, positive and very kind of what's the word? It's a very forward-looking, kind of like optimistic view of how the future might go, because it's essentially like, it's despite everything, things, if there are people that want to make things work, then that there is like the potential for there to be a positive future in the future, right? So I think that's sort of like the main, that's kind of another main draw, is that despite how bleak things might look at the moment, I think that there is an opportunity for there to be to be optimistic about the future, and I think that's a really nice message too. And like, it's just because like, these characters, the main 13 characters, they get put through these like trials and errors, and they develop these relationships, and they go through some difficult moments in which they are sort of beaten down, but despite that, because they have one another, power of friendship and everything like that, and that they are sort of able to realize their full potential as characters, they're eventually kind of able to face off against this, almost kind of beyond imaginable threat, and go up against it, right? It's not quite, killing God or anything crazy like that. No spoil. That's hopefully that's not too big of a spoiler. Like, it's no killing God or anything like that in this game, which was, I guess, kind of like a nice change of pace for a JRPG. But I think that there is still a very compelling story to be had in there, and not everything has to be dealing with killing God. But yeah, I I don't want to say too much else because I fear that I'm gonna give some detail away that I don't really want to. Um, so this is definitely one I recommend you play for yourself. You don't look anything up, and yeah, just kind of take your time with it too. There are some moments where your head will be thrown on for a loop, and you're like, what even the hell is happening? What is going on? And maybe you get a little frustrated, but then you stick with it, and then you kind of see where things eventually kind of lead to. Fantastic game. I've said I've said my praises with this game, but it is really an incredible game. And the great thing is, this is not necessarily related to the story or anything, but once you do complete the main stories, the main objectives, there are some side or like additional missions that you get to play through. However, if you would like to, it's just additional content, extra content. There is an additional 999 levels, which is fucking crazy to me, and that's great because I've been playing a little bit of it. I don't expect to complete it at all, but it is nice to know that there's just kind of this extra content available that is sort of almost like never ending, you know what I mean? And I can kind of like go back to it when I want to, when I sort of feel like it, if I'm sort of itching for the combat, and I think that's great. I think that's super dope. Again, it gives reasons for players to come back even after completing the main story, and yeah, I enjoy the combat. It's nothing too complex. I'm mostly repeating the same action commands, or rather, I'm repeating sort of the same commands over and over again. But I like that. It's sort of like a nice sort of feel to it, and it's not necessarily super strategic. You do have the option of raising the difficulty if you want to, but I'm comfortable with with the normal mode and just kind of like buzzing down the enemies and the units and shit like that. So it's fun. It's cool, and I'm happy that they've added this additional piece to it, so I can kind of continue playing it essentially, even after I've fully completed the main story and main missions. Let's talk, now that we're done with 13 Sentinels, let's talk about this upcoming year and some of the things that I would like to get into, especially on the front of gaming specifically. I've talked about some of the games that I've picked up recently, which includes Okami and Disco Elysium. Those are some of the games that I would like to play this year. I think I'm leaning towards Okami right now, in terms of what I would like to play next. I may take a break from, I might just honestly might just continue playing 13 Sentinels for just like those extra side missions for the time being. But in terms of the next game that I would like to play, I'm leaning towards Okami, since I just picked that up, and I've sort of had that on my list for a while, and I've had it. I've kind of been wanting to play it, or thinking of playing it. I've had that thought in the back of my head for a long time, since hearing the name. Yeah, I think I'm definitely leaning towards playing through that first, and then maybe I'll go into Disco Elysium. But I'll see how I feel. Right now, I'm not super committed to diving into a new story-based game, but who knows? Honestly, maybe my thoughts might change by the end of this week. Other games that I sort of have that are kind of on the sort of on the short list of games that I would like to play, maybe in the next few months. Those include that would include Baten Kaitos. I've been wanting to pick that up. Old Monolith Soft game on the GameCube that was really, I guess remastered for the Switch. Both the two games were remastered for the Switch, so Got quite a lot of gaming material there. Probably like, I'm assuming combined it's going to be up to like 60 plus hours with both games. I'm assuming. I haven't really looked up at the how long the games take to beat, but I'm on the minimum, on the low side of things, it's probably going to be up to 60 hours. Another one is the Star Ocean Second Story R remaster. That looks fantastic. I've only heard good things about that game. That's kind of high up on my list as well. So I definitely want to get into that, sooner rather than later. So honestly, like it might kind of flip flop between either Baten Kaitos or Star Ocean that I would like to play next for like kind of like my big JRPG game. And I think that just like the animation style, the 2D sprites, and then like the 3D background, it looks fantastic. I've said this before, but I hope that like if Xenogears ever gets remastered, I hope that they implement that style with Xenogears. I think it would look really good. In that particular style, especially with like the kind of the 2D 3D or 2D HD, excuse me, I almost dropped my phone, HD 2D graphical style. And other games that I would like to play. Metroid Prime Remastered is another one that I have kind of looked at and considered playing and picking up. I might wait around to see if there is if there's like a sale later down the line. But I wanted to play that game like way back when I had my GameCube, but I just never got the chance to pick it up. So I do want to try it because I've heard great things about it, and I think that I've never been super into Metroid. The only Metroid game that I played is Metroid Other M, which is like considered one of the worst in the series, but I still had fun with that one. I never beat it, but I did have fun with that game back on the Wii. But I do want to check out some of the classics in the series, and I think the remastered version is probably like a pretty good place to start. So that's another one that I might want to try this year. What else is sort of on my list? Outer Wilds. That's a big one for me. They recently released the Switch version earlier in December. And I've heard nothing but good things about this game. I've heard that the Switch version is, obviously there's some downsides in terms of the graphical aspects and, the just the way in which things look, which is expected, right? But as long as it runs fine and it looks, fine and serviceable, I'm probably going to pick up that version and try that out. I'm excited to kind of get into that. I don't want to look up anything on it because I've seen like various like video essays on the game kind of float around and shit. I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I'm gonna hold off before I watch these because I would like to play the game. So that's sort of on. I guess I would put that on my short list of games that I would like to play. Maybe I'll put it above Baten Kaitos and Disco Elysium, or I guess I guess I might put it above Disco Elysium. We'll see. I also don't want to buy. I bought quite a lot of games this past break. So I kind of want to hold off on that a little bit, but we'll see, man. Maybe I'll make an exception for Outer Wilds. Another game, Live Alive. I know that game came out in 2022, but that's been on my list for a little while now. That's another, I guess old school RPG, JRPG, remastered, first time released in in the West, and yeah, that's another one that I've only heard good things about, and yeah, I would like to check that out sometime. It will depend on how much I prioritize other games, but I've heard it's like a shorter game, so that might be like a fun in between game for, if I want to, kind of put that after playing something like Bot and Kaidos or like Star Ocean, right? So that could be a good like follow up game if I would like to play it. Another one is Suikoden. There's going to be the Suikoden remasters that they announced way back. And I don't think we've really gotten too much of an update since they first announced those remasters. But I'm sort of, I'm cautiously optimistic of the release date, and also in terms of how the remasters are done. I would like to check those out because those are some of the classic RPGs, JRPGs, and I've heard many good things about them. I know that Ayuden Chronicles is also it was made by the original creators of Suikoden. That's going to get released on the Switch next year as well. So we got a lot. We got a lot of that type of RPG. I would like to check those out sometime. I don't know, it's going to come down to what I'm sort of feeling. It's like, am I feeling these like, these types of strategy, turn-based RPGs at this time? We will see. And I'm just trying to figure out like where I'm going to squeeze those in if I want to play them, you know what I mean? So but those are some games that I would like to play sometime in the near future. All right, looking at the list. These already might take up my entire year next year or this year. Honestly, like I feel like those will take up like so much of my time. And I still have a bunch of Final Fantasy games that I want to play. I want to play Final Fantasy X. I want to play Final Fantasy VIII, and I want to check out Final Fantasy XII. I'm leaning towards 10 being kind of the priority in terms of the ones that I would like to play next, like in terms of the Final Fantasy titles. That might go. I don't know. I might play that sooner rather than later. Because I'm tired of being left out in the dark in terms of how good the game is. And I want to pick it up and play it. So honestly, that might come up sooner rather than later. Again, you'll see, but I've been wanting to play 10 for quite a while. I tried to play it on the PlayStation many years ago, the original Japanese version, but I just never found the time to play through it. So this might be a good opportunity to pick that back up and start over and experience that kind of really for the first time. So I'm excited to dive into that game because this is definitely that's definitely one that's been heralded as sort of like a classic. And everything like that. So, yeah, that is definitely high on the list. Other games, and then we'll probably call it because there's too many games. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This is another one. This could be a game. This could be an in-between game for like a JRPG in between, RPG between like two RPGs. This might be perfect for that. I think that I've heard that the story is fantastic. I heard that the concept behind it is very unique, and best thing, it's also not very long. So I will be, I guess, I'm not rushing to play the game, or I'm not rushing to beat the game necessarily, but I think that it would be perfect to, kind of supplement, some other games that I might be playing. So I'm feeling confident that this is this is one that I'll probably play this year because it's a low time commitment, and I don't necessarily have to put too much into it, right? If it is a single player linear story with not a whole lot of like additional RPG elements going for it, so this might be perfect to get into sometime. If I'm kind of feeling a little burnt out from some of the other 100-hour RPGs. So I think I'm feeling confident that I'm going to pick this one up later this year. And I think that's honestly not a bad like short list of games that I would like to play within the next 6 months. Obviously I'm not going to be able to play all of them, but I think there are some that I can kind of get into, including things like Okami, and then Disco Elysium. So I'm excited for that. I think I've talked about this before, and I already did kind of a year in review for gaming, but this past year has been like one of the best years for gaming for me, and I didn't even really play like, other than like Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Wonder, I didn't really play any of the other big titles like Baldur's Gate 3. I don't have a PS5 or a PC. Or like Spider-Man, or like Alan Wake 2, and some of those other bigger ones. But it was still like an incredible year because I was able to catch up on some very good games outside of like Tears of the Kingdom. And I think this year will also be equally exciting because there are still so many games that I would like to play through. And there's also going to be new releases as well, and I have to take that into account because there might be a game that pops up, and then upon like just like a, I don't know, just as a quick maybe reaction, upon impulse, I'll make like an impulse purchase and buy the game because I just have a feeling that this might be a good game, and then now my backlog is not continuing, is just going to continue to stay stagnant or whatever. I don't really care that much, but there's always going to be the chance that a new game comes up that I want to pick up, and that's going to throw a wrench at the whole thing, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. There's also this year is also going to be very interesting to see because of the potential for there being a Switch 2, right? There's been plenty of rumors, and I've talked about this plenty of times. So there is that as well. Again, I don't really know how much I am willing to buy a new system at this point, but if the launch lineup is strong enough, and the biggest thing, and if there is backwards compatibility, then I am much more incentivized to buy the new system as opposed to holding off before for like a price drop or something like that. So that is also some big news. I'm the next Nintendo Direct is probably going to be around February, as it usually is. So around that time, we'll probably hear some shit. So I'm looking forward to that. That's probably going to be pretty exciting to keep up with, and looking forward to some new game releases, even if these are games that I might not play anytime soon. But just more to add to the list. So yeah, those are some of the games and some of the things that I'm looking forward to this year. As in regards to kind of the gaming front, there's other things that I want to talk about in terms of like basketball and stuff like that. I'll save that for discussion next week. And I've already sort of touched upon maybe some New Year's resolution stuff. Maybe have I? I don't know. I don't really care too much. I'm gonna continue doing the most that I can at this time and improving kind of my general well-being, just continue doing what I feel works, and being a bit more disciplined in regards to some other things. So yeah, looking forward to another year. I think this year I'm looking forward to this year. I think last year, just to kind of wrap things up. But I think last year, I had some good moments for sure. I've had some nice moments, but I really want to try and make some more experiences, and especially on the front of like traveling and stuff. And I really want to be more proactive and in doing more things. I think this year was pretty quiet, which is not a bad thing at all. But I feel that I want to try my best to, take advantage of the time that I have outside of work and really seek out some new things and new experiences and whatnot. And that, that might come with travel, that might come with some other things. But yeah, I would like to, again, be more active and try and do some more stuff, really, because I think that this year I felt a bit maybe stagnant at times, and I think that sort of led to me feeling a little unfulfilled. So yeah, I would like to be more active in certain areas, and I also would just like to continue doing this because I think I've had some really solid moments in terms of episodes that I might have uploaded earlier this year in terms of like discussions and that sort of thing. I really enjoyed especially some of my episodes, like the one regarding like Nier Automata and sort of my thoughts and feelings about that. I just want to continue sharing my thoughts on the games that I play and talking about that because that brings me a lot of joy. So yeah, there's a lot of things to look forward to, and just a lot of things to kind of strive forward with. So I just want to leave it off on that note, and yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.